Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech, and it's our first deck tech featuring new cards from Edge of Eternities. And today, we're going to be talking about the newest version of Beast Aggro. I'm really excited to talk about this deck. A lot of my favorite creatures just in Pioneer in general are beasts, so naturally, I'm very excited to talk about this list today. As always at the end of the video, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about this deck? Is there a specific beast that I should have put in this deck that I did not? Or do you have suggestions for upcoming videos? Just let me know in the comment section. Okay, so it's pretty obvious. Everyone knows what this card is in the thumbnail. It's Frenzied Baloth, one of my personal favorite cards from Edge of Eternities. It's a card that I think has some decent power level in the format. I think it's going to be like a pretty solid card. You know, mono green aggro decks are definitely going to want a card like this, which, spoiler alert, we're also playing mono green. So this really just is the perfect card for this deck. It can't be countered, so it's great against all the control decks. Trample and Haste, fantastic keywords. Your creature spells can't be countered, so you don't have to worry about any of those pesky No More Lies or 3 Steps Ahead, as well as combat damage can't be prevented, which overall just kind of combinates to a smaller questing beast, but also still pretty solid. So obviously we're playing 4 copies of these, but let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the deck here. We're playing 32 creatures in this deck because we are a creature aggro deck after all. So starting off, we're playing the 8 Elves. They really just help us accelerate into our mana, and we have a lot of good late game payoffs that we can take advantage of with the Landos and the Elvish Mystic. We also just really didn't have a good 1-drop to play for the most part. Like, we could have played like our Boreal Grazer, but I just wanted to play the Elf package. And then obviously we're playing 4 Frenzied Baloth, starting off with all of our beasts. We are also playing 4 copies of Garruk's Harbinger, 4 copies of Lovestruck Beast, and 2 copies of Bloated Contaminator. Garruk's Harbinger I really love as a full 4 of because of the hexproof from black, is really good against Fatal Push and Go for the Throat. 2 of the biggest removal spells in the entire format, so sometimes against those mono black decks we just kind of get like, it's not quite protection obviously, but getting the hexproof from black is really strong. Lovestruck Beast is obviously fantastic too. You just get so much value in a card like this, basically a 5/5 for 3. And then 2 copies of Bloated Contaminator. I wanted 2 more 3-drop beasts in this deck. I also really do love the Proliferate part of this, just because there is a specific Planeswalker that we're playing. We're never going to like toxic out our opponent for the most part, so we're not taking a huge advantage of the Proliferate, but there's going to be some times where we definitely do. But continuing with the beast, we are playing 4 copies of Axebane Feryx, 4 copies of Ulvenwald Oddity, and 2 copies of Questing Beast. All of our 4-drops have haste. I really love all of these creatures. Axebane Feryx is fantastic. It's got the Death Touch. It's able to trade with anything. The ward can sometimes be tricky for our opponents to be able to actually answer, especially in the early turns of the game, which is really important. Ulvenwald Oddity is great just because you get the really nice Trample and Haste, and then we get to 7 mana, and then we can transform it into this gigantic monstrosity. And then Questing Beast is fantastic. We got the little Questing Beast, we got the OG Questing Beast. It really just kind of fits over really, really well in the deck. But those are all the beasts that we're playing. We've got a few more cards that we got to talk about, though. So, as our main removal spell, we are playing 4 copies of Hard Hitting Question, and we're also playing 2 copies of Garruk Unleashed. 1, because it fits really well with the Garruk's Harbinger, but 2, this is also just a really good card in general. You -2 to make beast tokens. It's just a really sweet card. I've always loved playing this Garruk with Garruk's Harbinger. It just really fits the theme of the entire deck, and giving +2/+3 and Trample is absolutely incredible. So definitely a huge fan of the 2 copies of Garruk in this deck. That's the entire main board. Let's go ahead and talk about the lands. We're playing 22 lands in our deck, and it's a pretty straightforward mana base, which is going to make sense. Now, we're playing 3 copies of Lair of the Hydra, 4 copies of Hash Oasis, and 1 copy of Boseiju as our green utility lands. Lair just makes sense because, after all, we're mono green, but we have a lot of cards that need like the double pips, so it's important that we don't play a whole bunch of colorless lands. That's also why we're playing the Hash Oasis. It's just great in this deck. I mean, just being able to get +3/+3 to any of our creatures. A lot of them have Trample too, which is nice, so it's not like our opponent's just going to automatically chump block something. And Boseiju is Boseiju. And then rounding out our lands, we were playing 2 copies of Mutavault, 2 copies of Cavernous Souls, and 10 basic forests. The Mutavault, this is actually the new one from Edge of Eternities. I kind of like this art. I think it's kind of cool. You know, you get like the spaceship kind of going through the text there. I kind of dig this new Mutavault. And then Cavernous Souls makes sense. We really honestly don't need it if we have a Frenzied Baloth in play, which is kind of funny, but you know, we're not always going to, so it makes sense to go ahead and slot in 2 Cavernous Souls. And then as our spicy basic land of the day, I've always been a big fan of Adam Paquette's lands, and this one looks awesome. I don't know why, but this kind of reminds me of Star Fox. There's like that one mission in Star Fox Zero where it's like really jungly, and it kind of reminds me of that. I don't know why the ships remind me of the R-Wing, but they do. I don't know. So, but that's why I wanted to include this one. It's probably my favorite basic land in the entire set. But next thing we have to do is we have to hop into the sideboard. As always, I love to mention this. This is just personally what I would run in my sideboard. If yours looks a little bit different, that's totally fine. This is just a combination of things that I would personally play based off of what I run into on Magic Arena as well as in Paper Magic. But starting us off, we have 4 copies of Pick Your Poison. Don't leave home without it. There's so many good artifacts, enchantments, and creatures with flying in this format that we want to take care of. Most notably cards like Core Steelcutter, Unholy Annex, Fable the Mirrorbreaker, as well as like Atraxas. It's always good to have your Pick Your Poisons. 2 copies of Tyvar Stand. I think it's the best protection spell that we can play in an aggro deck because it can also be a pump spell, which is really sweet. So that's why I'm playing 2 copies of that, and we can really just get our opponent by playing these copies of Tyvar Stands. We're playing 2 copies of Grafdigger's Cage. It's good against a number of different cards, most notably like Collected Company, Arclight Phoenix, or like the big ones. It's always just such a really, really strong card to play in your sideboard. We are also playing 2 copies of Unlicensed Hearse. I've always loved this as my no graveyard hate of choice. I really love it in creature-heavy decks too, just because it's able to get really big. We can crew it very easily, so that's why I'm playing 2 copies of that. And then rounding out our sideboard, we have a couple of beasts on our board. We're playing 3 copies of Gem Razor as additional artifact and enchantment removal, so big fan of the Gem Razors. Also kind of cool how we can turn our elves into beasts, which is kind of sweet. And then we're playing the 2 copies of Obstinate Baloth. Helps us gain a little bit of extra life, so against the aggressive decks, it's good. But any decks that are playing a ton of discard effects, you know, we can kind of get them with that as well. So definitely a huge fan of the sideboard beast package that we're playing here. So the next thing we have to talk about is the tips and strategy. I've got 2 tips that if you're looking to play this deck, whether it be in paper or on Magic Online, some tips that'll kind of help you play the deck a little bit better. You know, maybe you already knew these things potentially, or maybe it's just giving you some more insight on specific things related to the deck. So the first thing I have to mention is the beasts have secret text. Most notably, Frenzied Baloth and Questing Beast have that text of combat damage can't be prevented, which is very important. So there's 2 notable cards I want to mention here. Brave the Elements. If our opponent has a Brave the Elements and they play it defensively, it doesn't matter. The combat damage can't be prevented. So they can get blown up by a Brave the Elements. And same thing with Fog. If our opponent fogs us, combat damage can't be prevented. So it doesn't matter. We're still going to slap them silly. I remember playing, it was a 1K a long time ago with Pioneer. And I remember playing the Simic Nexus decks, and I had Questing Beast in play, and I attacked them, and they fogged, and I said, okay, cool. And then I was able to take them out that turn because they didn't realize that interaction. So it's not going to happen a lot. This also works with, like, same thing with the Brave the Elements, obviously with protection. It does count with protection from green if they have, like, the Black Beetle in play. Like, it's the same thing there. But it's not going to come up a lot, but it is something to keep in mind if you are playing this card. So just keep that in mind. The other thing I have to mention is Lovestruck loves the elves. Lovestruck Beast. It can't attack unless you control a 1/1 creature. We obviously have the Heart's Desire side of it, but we also have Land of Elves and Elvish Mystic, which kind of fits the entire theme there, which is pretty good. So keep that in mind. Like, if you're playing Garruk, be wary about pumping up our elves, because then all of a sudden maybe we can't attack with our Lovestruck Beast. So also maybe prioritize, like, okay, I have an elf in play, but maybe before combat, they'll, like, fatal push my elf if they can't kill the Lovestruck Beast or something like that. Do kind of keep that in mind when you're playing this deck. You need to make sure you have a 1/1 in play. So very, very important. We also can activate our Lair of the Hydra, which is kind of secret text on that too. So I just wanted to mention that as well. So the last thing I have to go over is the budget options for this deck, which it's honestly simple. You can swap out the Cavern of Souls. That's really about it. Most of this deck is really, really cheap. I guess you can also do the Beseiju, to be fair. But that's really about it. This deck is incredibly cheap to play. The current list, as it's constructed right now, is only $160 US, which is very cheap for a fully tuned Pioneer deck. But the budget list, I got down to $44. And all I did was trim the Beseiju and the Caverns. I didn't change anything else. Everything else is the exact same, which is to be expected. It's a mono green deck. You know, a lot of the different dual lands can be a little bit pricey, your shock lands and some of your, like, slow lands and your surveil lands. But when you're just playing monocolor decks, it's going to be really, really cheap. So yeah, mono green beasts. I've always really loved beasts in Magic. I've always thought they were really fun to play. And definitely let me know in the comment section below if there's a specific beast that I should have put in this deck that I didn't, or if there was any changes that you would personally make. Just let me know what you think in the comment section. And that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Saranoki, Michael D, our premium channel member, The Common Cold, Jeremy P, and BG Stilts. If you're interested in being a channel member, it starts at $1 a month, and you gain access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, I'm Commander Crane, thanks for watching this video, and hope to catch you in the next one.